BJ, I figured I could just send you a quick YouTube video instead of typing out a long and what would probably be a very complicated email to you. Hopefully it is not too long-winded. I'm going to try to do it in one take, but here we go. I'm sending you a total of 2 different documents that will hopefully prove useful. The first one is just different social studies standards that came from the document, the draft that you sent to me. I typed them up in Word so that they were easy to copy. I then linked them. So, for example, we had marked down as civics as East Asia or economics as South Asia. So I not only typed them out, I kind of organized them and formatted them in a way that will, as we start working with the standards and making the new curriculum guide, they should be easy to copy and paste, and that should save us some time. The second document is some initial thoughts of what North Africa could look like next year, or the unit that really deals with the geography standards. And so what I did is I copied down the 3 geography standards for 7th grade global studies, and I kind of just listed them out as G1, G2, and G3. What I then did is these geography standards come from that link from the website that you sent to me. I then tried to take the geography standard and then change it into student-friendly terms that were still generic and did not tie into a specific way of teaching. So analyze human population movements and patterns. This is my idea of human movement. So it still gets the gist and the heart of what the standard is getting at, but it's phrased in a way that not only 7th graders, but then new teachers would begin to understand. So you have the original wording, you have the student-friendly. These could be like learning targets or learning objectives that you could post. And so the idea would be we would do this for all the different units. So geography, history, civics, we'd have the actual standard and then have student-friendly versions. I think that teachers should be able to change the wording on the student-friendly versions, but it'd be a great starting point. So then the second part is kind of how a sample unit proposal. So this would be kind of in place of a traditional curriculum guide. So what this North African unit proposal is just how I would teach G1, G2, and G3 to my students. And so I'm separating it out into 3 different parts. So part 1 is Mansa Musa, part 2 is ancient Egypt, and part 3 is Aswan Dam. After each part and label, Mansa Musa, there's a very brief and vanilla description of what students will learn about. And if you'll notice, for example, they will learn how we traded natural resources like salt and gold. G2, this is part of that unit that then corresponds to the standard right here of worldwide trade. This one right here, G1, this corresponds to human movement. And so as you go through and see the different parts of either Mansa Musa or ancient Egypt or Aswan Dam, you'll see where the standards come in and how I teach them and assess them. So after the kind of a very brief description, then underneath the brief description, there would be a resource list, a location of where I could find them, and if there's posted, we can do hyperlinks, and then a brief description. So the idea would be we would have the geography standards, we have student-friendly versions of them, and then for each unit, we would have at least one kind of sample explanation of how teachers could, if they wanted to teach the unit, where those resources are located, if they would want to go by and teach it in this manner. We'd also then have an assessment tied to this as well. I then took this scale up here is just what I did is I took these 3 things and I kind of changed the wording to apply it to what my students were learning about, because it's just been in my based on my experience, if you explain how and why people move from one part of the world to another, if you ask a 7th grader, a lot of times they're going to be like, huh? What do you mean by that? So if you tie it into Mansa Musa, so why was Mansa Musa the wealthiest human in history? Why was he, where did his wealth come from? What did that have to do with trade? If you ask a more specific question that's tied into what you actually do in class, you generally get a better understanding of what students know. So going forward, I know that we need an assessment for North Africa. It seemed a little premature because I wanted to kind of touch base and hear your thoughts on the format and how this would set up. We also need to then understand where the literacy standards or the inquiry standards would come in. I would really recommend that after kind of reading the inquiry standards, that we kind of stick with what we have right now when it comes to literacy standards. So, for example, in this first semester, we really look at writing to inform. I think that writing to inform should still stick. So it should still be part of this unit. We not necessarily worry about the inquiry standards, at least for next year as well. So please feel free to shoot me an email back, or if you just want to give me a call or text, or even just come by and visit, I'm open to whatever's most convenient for you. But before I kind of went too much further, I wanted to touch base about this idea of having taking the standards, making them into student friendly, and then having an example of what this could look like in a classroom that is tied to it kind of blends both the old way of we're teaching a theme of geography, and then so basically combining the old thematic version, or excuse me, the new thematic way of teaching the curriculum, but also kind of tied into the old school approach of teaching each unit by region as well. So let me know, and I apologize that I'm rambling here. As I said earlier, I was doing it in one take.